All right, welcome back. I am Rudy Knapp, and this is Legacy Build Your Kingdom. I'm excited to be back. We have had many good conversations lately, good podcast topics. I have done a 6-part series on relationships. If you missed it, please go back and check it out. I believe it's a good series for people to take some good information, hopefully see some perspective that I have, and then maybe some perspective that you have, and put them together to be able to say, hey, you know what? This is the foundation of what a good relationship, successful relationship is. I started that whole conversation by talking a little bit about what I think the foundation is of a great, successful relationship. Now, keep in mind, I am going through all of these things on my own. I'm also telling you what I've learned and gone through with my own experiences. I have a lot of good things, a lot of rough things that I've gone through, but the whole point is to be able to look at someone else's perspective and see if you can take something from what they're bringing to the table. Just like any other relationship, any other conversation, what are you getting from that conversation? Are you listening for understanding, and are you trying to see what that person's perspective is? If you are, then you're gaining knowledge, you're growing. And too many times we shut down, we disagree, we don't believe you, instead of trying to really understand where they're coming from. You do not have to listen, you do not have to believe in everything I do. But if you really own up to, hey, I want to get better, I'm looking at my relationship and I want to make sure that this relationship exists more in a greater light, a more successful manner, then you will listen, hopefully, and take something from this. So I started that whole conversation in that 6-part series with endless effort, which I think is the foundation of all relationships. Everybody says communication. I believe in endless effort. When you see that effort from people, when you see they care, they're giving, and they never get to a point where it's enough, they continue to give, you will see the success in that relationship. Now, that goes along with a lot of other things like communication. It must exist. Listen for understanding, speak for understanding. All right, when I'm speaking, I'm trying to get you to understand my perspective. I'm not just trying to speak. I went on and I talked a little bit about Jesus and your relationship with God and your purpose in life and what that means to you. Hopefully, you have a great relationship with God. Hopefully, you understand your purpose in life, and hopefully, that can lead you to a whole lot of success with your own relationship. I believe everyone should have some sort of relationship together as a couple with God. I also went on to talk a little bit about love languages. And in love languages, it's really interesting that we understand the concept of love languages, but also that there are a lot of love languages out there. We're trying to identify to the 5 love languages that we have, but really looking back at those love languages and knowing what our partner's love language is, because we're supposed to provide for our partner. They should know your love language and provide for you that way. This is the best way to communicate with them, to make them understand that you care about them. Further went on and went through a conversation about men versus women and how they approach relationships, talking about how emotional connection is so important for women, but also how physical connection is important for men. That went through a lot of series of diving deep into what those mean, but listening to that might hopefully benefit you to understand what men are thinking and what women are thinking. And then I finally wrapped it all up with this concept of circle. My acronym for circle, going right back to communication and how we communicate with one another, initiation in a relationship, respect, and how we both deserve respect. Commitment, you can't be one foot out, you have to be committed. Love, are you putting your partner's needs before your own needs? And then endless effort. I talked a little bit about how this circle, I want you to imagine holding hands with your partner and understanding this is a bond that doesn't break. This is a bond that we're sitting back and we're looking at how we cannot let someone come between that circle. We cannot let other opinions, we can't let our parents, we can't let our children, we can't let our friends' opinions come inside that circle or break that bond. This is between you and your partner. Also, our circle represents reciprocal. And how it goes one way, it has to come back. If I give you commitment, you have to commit back. If I give you communication, you're communicating with me. If I initiate with you, you initiate with me. If I give you respect, you give me respect back. If I love you, show you love, you should be loving me. And if I give you that effort, you should be giving that effort back. So again, looking at the concept of circle, understanding that idea, and in how we can improve our relationships. So again, that was a great series. I hope that everyone goes back, checks it out, looks at it. I'm going to move a little bit further on. Yes, a lot of things relate back to relationships or the concept of partnerships. We'll get into relationships versus partnerships. But today, I want to talk about strength. What is strength? If you were to define strength, how would you define that? You know, what do you consider a strong person? Is it someone that can lift heavy weights like the original famous Arnold Schwarzenegger? Or is it someone that can sustain a lot of pain? Is it Rocky Balboa, took all the hits? Is it the mom that can manage life with 4 kids on her own with 1 income? Is it someone that defeated cancer? What is it? What is strength to you? To me, real strength is not physical strength. One might see me as my physique and say, hey, he's a strong person. He works out, he lifts weights, he's strong. I personally work out every single day, daily, lift heavy weights at times, but this doesn't make me strong. Is it a representation of strength? Sure. But is this what strength really is? Strength is not even just being mentally tough to overcome hardships. Like most, I have endured hardships throughout my entire life. Mentally getting over pain, like running the Chicago Marathon, and at mile 11 and a half, pulling both of my calf muscles, fighting through it for another 16 miles I ran on 2 pulled calf muscles just to finish the marathon. That's enduring tremendous pain. But I don't consider myself tough because of that. I don't consider myself strong because of that. Although both physical and mental toughness, they're admirable. They're amazing. Those are signs of strength. I understand that. They do not truly represent strength. True strength, true toughness comes from the ability to control oneself. It comes from maintaining integrity when life tempts you. It comes from overcoming anger and vengeance. It comes from handling our emotions in the most trying times. It comes from appropriately responding to horrific or horrible situations in a manner that still represents our character, our core values, and our morals. And it's the hardest possible thing to do, which usually leads to poor choices, regret, and some weakness. Believe me, I am continuously working on this. Control what I am capable of controlling, not demanding, not yelling, expressing my anger in a way in which I calm myself, not fighting and thinking I can control other people or outcomes that I'm not capable of controlling. Recognizing my actions, making conscious decisions in the moment before reacting will truly show strength. So strength doesn't come from what we see or what we endure in our brain or how much pain we can handle. It comes from this control of our own reaction, our own feelings, our own emotions when everything is heightened, when it is tough. If you're capable of looking at yourself in the moment and saying, you know what, I'm upset, I'm angry, but I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm not going to lash out. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to respond appropriately without going out of character. I don't want to be represented as that monster. Now, a lot of us will sit here and listen to this, and they might say, hey, you know what? Sometimes people deserve it, and sometimes this is what should happen. Believe me, I've had my share of experiences, and I promise you I regret them all. I've had experiences where I made myself look like a fool. I've had experiences in relationships where I've lashed out and I immediately regretted it because it's not who I am, and I won't be defined by a poor judgment that I've made. We all make mistakes. We all step out of character at times, but how do we control how often that happens? How do we control that from happening ever again? We have to be knowledgeable and look in that mirror. I continuously say this is one of the most evolved situations in thought processes I've ever come across. Look in the mirror, even when you've been wronged, even when it's horrible, even when you know you're right. Look in the mirror. Because every situation involves 2 people at least. And in that 2 people, one person could be 99% wrong. And you could be that 1%. but you're still part of that conversation. You're still part of being in that situation that you have to take ownership of what you could have done differently or what you think you would have done differently the next time or if it ever happened again. So you have to look in that mirror and how you can better yourself, how you can look at your own self and say, hey, how do I control what I'm capable of controlling and not try to control other people? Now, control in psychology represents an individual's perceived ability to influence their emotions, actions, and environment, or dysfunctionally, the actions of others. Personal control involves managing internal impulses, thoughts, and behaviors, while controlling others is an unhealthy, conceived power dynamic. Healthy control centers on self regulation, whereas unhealthy control stems from fear or anxiety. This is a definition from psychology. This is what they will tell you. Personal control over oneself. The definition would be the ability to regulate one's emotions, desires, impulses, and behaviors. Internal locus of control. The belief that one is responsible for their own actions and can affect their life outcomes. That intrinsic value, that internal. You are in control of yourself. You are in control of your own actions, your own beliefs, your own life outcomes. You cannot control others. You cannot control situations. You can control you and what you're capable with your own body, your own mind, your own reaction. You cannot control others, and that is very difficult for most of us, including our own kids, including looking at our own kids and saying, I will control them. Yes, there are some powers that you have as an adult to be able to understand that you are in charge of them until they're at a certain age, but you cannot control the way they think. You cannot control their actions. You can ask them, you can beg them, you can force them with your hand, but you cannot control what they decide for themselves. You get to control yourself. Self-discipline, cultivating the ability to make choices that align with personal values, often placing the needs of others alongside one's own, rather than being controlled by instant gratification. There's that key word again, and I'm going to have a whole podcast on that. We live our life on this instant gratification. Kids in school live off of instant gratification. Your own kids at home live off of instant gratification. We live off of instant gratification. I want to get in shape, so I'm going to go work out one time. I better be in shape. I want to be healthy. I'm going to go eat one salad, so I should be healthy now. No, you cannot live off of instant gratification. Delayed gratification is sacrifice, leads to discipline, leads to consistent effort, leads to growth or success. Very interesting thought. Look at that process. We've talked about that before on this podcast. Understand those things are most important. What about function? It is critical for stress management and resilience. We have to start looking at this personal control over ourselves, including myself. I am a living proof of working on it. I swear on my life, I know this is the hardest thing in life. I'd like to consider myself strong. I'd like to consider myself very strong-minded, where I get over hard things and I make sure things get done. But even though that definition might have some strength involved in it, the true matter is what happens in the fire. What happens when your relationship goes bad? What happens when you are arguing with your parents? What happens when you are in a situation at work that's not going your way? How do you react? How do you control yourself? I have had some bad situations. I have also had great situations where I've controlled myself and I've fixed some things, where it's a constant work. And if you look at yourself and you truly say to yourself, I am somebody that is going to take a step back, look in the mirror. When I have that cognitive understanding of what's happening in the moment, I can start calling myself stronger. I can start thinking that I'm learning to gain strength. The biggest weakness in life comes from not being able to control yourself. We just talked about relationships for a second there, and we're coming off of a whole series on relationships. And this unhealthy control of thinking that you can impose your will on others, disregarding their autonomy and using manipulation and intimidation absolutely happens in relationships. I know for a fact it's happened in mine before, and I know it could be me at times. You cannot let that happen. I have backed out of that. I've learned from those mistakes. I understand that thoroughly now, but it doesn't mean that didn't exist before. Some people will understand and hear this and go, yeah, I've seen that happen in my relationship. And if you're honest with yourself, you will. You know, a sign of a controller is somebody that's excessively jealous, right? I've had my jealous moments as too. But excessive jealousy, that's insane, right? You isolate your partner. You don't allow them to do anything. You tell them what to do, right? Constantly criticizing them so you feel better about yourself. You're shifting blame when you should be taking ownership or accountability. That's a controller. Some people think controlling is loud and obnoxious and screaming and yelling. That's not always controlling. Controlling can be from silence. Controlling can be from you knowing it's hurting your partner and you're vindictively using it against them. Think about the concept of controlling. Where does this come from? Where does this control come from? It often comes from fear of abandonment, this low self-esteem, not knowing your worth, high anxiety. You control your partner, try to soothe your own problems that you have, your own internal. Your damages from previous relationships, from your upbringing, whatever it comes from, that control factor exists. You know, what are some healthy alternatives to this? What are some things that you can put in play? What boundaries can you put in place? Setting these boundaries is about expressing personal needs and limits, not forcing others to act in a specific way. We have to get to a point that says, hey, I'm going to set boundaries in my relationship. And if you're not willing to adhere to those boundaries, reasonable boundaries, we're not putting boundaries on every little thing and thinking that it always goes our way. That doesn't work. But if you have some non-negotiables, you have some boundaries that come in place and you set them and your partner is not willing to do that for you, again, your needs don't come over theirs. Is there truly love there? Again, definition of love that I believe is putting your partner's needs over your own needs at times, most times. And if they set boundaries, you respect them. You adhere to those boundaries because you love your partner and you know that's what they need. They feel abandoned. They need a constant understanding that, hey, you care about me. Maybe they've come from a situation where they're healing. Are you there to help them? So these all come into play with control. So when we start thinking about this idea and you start thinking about self-control, I can manage my reaction to this situation is the thought process that should come in your head. I can manage my reaction to this situation. If you are controlling, I must manage the situation to feel safe. I must manage the person to feel safe. That's a controlling concept, right? That's a controlling thought. We want to change that to I can manage my reaction to this situation. I can close my mouth and not react at all. I can agree to disagree. I can walk away without getting emotional. I can hold it within and not react to what's happening in the situation, in the time it's happening, in the fire. So we want to look at those concepts here. So I'm going to go back and say this one more time, reiterate all of this. What is strength? It's the ability to control yourself, your physical reaction, your mental thought process, and what you're thinking, the narrative that's coming up that you keep replaying in your head, sitting in your bed at home when you're getting angry and replaying this narrative and coming up with they're doing this or they might be doing this or they didn't call me back or I'm mad at them for saying this or doing this. Get over your narrative. Because as we talked about many times, narrative is what's killing people. The thinking process is killing relationships. Stop creating a narrative. Cut cords with the narrative. We're all going to do some thinking. We have to cut and we have to control the outcome of how that narrative spreads. I gave this example once before and I said, okay, it's raining outside. Immediately, what does it go to? Oh, well, I don't have my umbrella, so now my hair is going to get wet and now it's going to be a long ride home and there's going to be traffic and I'm going to be late. My clothes are going to get ruined. There's a narrative. When reality is the grass gets watered. It's a couple seconds for me to get to the car without my umbrella. I'm going to be okay. Controlling that narrative, controlling your thought process, your mental capacity. And then also controlling your reaction, controlling When something happens that's hard in your life and comes down on you, or you're in a fight, or you're in an argument, or you have a confrontation, whatever the case is, controlling your reaction, your words out of your mouth, controlling how you react, the things you say, your bodily functions, meaning you are not going to go and swing on somebody, meaning you are not going to spit at someone screaming and yelling at them, meaning that your face isn't going to show some sort of emotion that shows that you're mad or angry. Controlling yourself. You can be angry at things. You can react and let them know your feelings in an appropriate way. I disagree with that. Nope, I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable to me. That is crossing my boundaries, and I will not tolerate that. This conversation is over. We can continue to find ways to control how we react, and then what we do after that, after we thought about it, after we took a deep breath, how we react to something. So, what is strength? It is controlling yourself and not attempting to control other people. It's walking away and giving in to the idea of saying, I don't need to be here, if that's the case. Very difficult. Letting go is one of the most difficult things you can do, but the most difficult thing you can do in your life is to control yourself. So when you understand that, strength comes from controlling yourself and weakness comes from not controlling yourself, you will truly understand that in complete definition. Now go out there, be healthy, be strong that way. Go out there and get over hard things, and go out there and never give in to the I can'ts. Make sure that you go through pain at times. You're going to suffer at times, but control your reaction. Control your body, control your mind, control your reaction. And if you do, you are truly strong. You are truly on your way for growth. You are truly understanding this capacity of, I can rule this life, my own life. Now I'm going to leave you with these two quotes that I found that I thought are really cool. Marcus Aurelius, the great Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. This is from Prophet Muhammad. The strong is not the one who overcomes the people by his strength, but the strong is the one who controls himself while in anger. The epitome of strength. Controlling yourself while you're angry. I'm going to leave you with that. I think that this concept of controlling yourself can lead you on to great things in life. It helps you at work. It helps you in a relationship. It helps you with your family and all of the connections you have with people. Go and take something from this perspective. Keep listening. Go back to the other ones about relationship. Please follow. Please look on Spotify. Please go through. Check out my website if you're interested in life coaching. I'm starting a new client I'm really excited about this week. Please continue to go through and help yourself build your kingdom. Signing off.